So I've chosen a raven as my bird, and we're going to start off by making an outline of it. So I just traced the outline and transferred it to paper. And now what I'm doing is I'm collecting pictures on a theme. My theme is identity. And these are all pictures that are personal to me, that mean something to me. Your theme can be whatever you choose it to be, but the bird outline is going to contain all of these. You can do it with an outline of yourself. You can do it with an outline of another animal, of something that you identify with. I've chosen the raven at this point, and I'm cutting out lots of different shapes of things that are small enough. I've resized them all and printed out a couple of pages of about 20 images, and I'm going to choose from them, not necessarily which ones are the most important, but which ones visually work with each other. So I've got my cat, I've got the little clay goddess that I make when out of ceramics, and lots of different things that are meaningful to me, but I might not use them all. So I've gathered quite a few of them there. And now I'm trying them out for size, what goes where, what fits, what doesn't. And I'm going to trace the bird again and transfer it to another piece of paper. So I'll have two pieces of paper. In the end, there'll be three pieces of work produced. There'll be the collage, where you've stuck all of your pictures onto the original outline. There'll be the tracing, where you've traced over all of the pictures, and then there'll be the painted or coloured version of it. So that's three different pieces. This is great for people doing GCSE art or graphics, because it gives you three pieces of linked work, progressive work in your folder. So I'm trying things for size. I've cut more things than will fit in the raven, but I want to have a choice. There's my camper van. I've chosen to use that. Interesting, that's the first thing. And there's a Celtic knotwork wing, and that's because I'm putting memories of my parents. There's my dad behind the camper van, and both my parents have now passed, and I want to use this as a way of commemorating them. There's my mum, she's in there as well, and they were historians. So the Celtic knotwork wing is inspired by my dad, and I got the idea of the pattern for it from one of his books. And there's my daughter, and she makes sculptures, and she's a cosplayer, and she's wearing her breathing equipment for when she uses fiberglass and things like that. So I've put the three most important people in there, my family. So there's my father, my mother, and my daughter, and then everything else is getting added around them. My camper van and my cat. My cat Misty is also very important to me. So I'm putting them all in. I'm putting some little blobs in as well, because I love the artist Klimt and I want to reference some of his work in there. So that's just at the bottom, and I thought that's a motif I can use. So there's the goddess. I make goddess sculptures, so that's going in to represent my creativity. And it's up to you how you do yours. You can choose images to a particular theme if you like. I've got a poppy there, and that was my father's favourite flower. Their house is being sold now, and one of the things I'm very sad about leaving behind is that my father's poppies in the garden, and they were beautiful. He tended them all the way through my childhood, and then when I came back and was the care of my mum, the poppies were still here, and so poppies symbolise my father. And there's my mum's peonies. She liked pink peonies, so I'm putting some of those in. One of my favourite flowers is cherry blossom, pink cherry blossom, and my father always used to grow sunflowers, so I'm putting sunflowers in as well. I've got some fly garret mushrooms, you know, the red and white ones, because we used to go foraging And now some sunflowers. And I've put a moon around the eye because a raven is quite a mysterious bird. Ravens are mentioned in an awful lot of literature, and they're usually portentous creatures that symbolise the underworld, they symbolise the coming of death, they symbolise mysterious things. So I've put a moon and stars around the eye, and I'm going to do the background of it in blue. So the purpose of putting all these things on is to fill up to create a collage and fill up the silhouette of the bird, and then we're going to trace around them and transfer the tracing onto the plain paper, and it will then give you a basis for your painting. So for anybody who hasn't used tracing paper before, you draw on both sides. So this is the first one. I've stuck it, you can't see, but there's a piece of tape at the top sticking it to stop it moving. It does move a bit, but I've stuck it down, and that's to keep it still. And I'm just going round everything. I have to sharpen the pencil every now and again because a blunt pencil doesn't really work very well. But I'm going round everything as carefully as I can. I'm not very careful as a person, so I'm trying to be neat. So I'm just going over all the lines, especially this Celtic one. That one's quite difficult. I need to try and be accurate. And you just trace over everything. And then after I've traced them all, I'll flip it, then flip it over. And that's not when I'm going to put it onto the paper, because it'll be the wrong way round. So you have to go on the back of it. You have to do the same thing that you're doing now onto the back of it and then flip it round again. So the bit that will be transferred onto the paper will be what's coming next. And I'll be drawing on this side again. So I draw on this side twice and on the other side once in order to transfer it. It's a very laborious process, tracing paper. If you have a problem drawing, if your hand hurts, or you have a problem drawing for that length of time, then, or neatly, like I do, then you can photocopy it onto a plain piece of paper and just work on top of the photocopy instead. Because this tracing took 2 hours, and if you don't have 2 hours, then a simple photocopy should do. But you have to just do it once for that. So you trace over it once and then photocopy the tracing paper onto a blank piece of paper. Or you can spend 2 hours going over. So I've put it on a piece of paper I don't need. I'm going over it again. This is the back side of it now, and whatever I draw on this side is what will be transferred to the paper of the actual painting that I'm going to do. I say painting, I'm actually going to use acrylic pens. I've got a selection of paints out to use, but I use acrylic pens, and then after that I'm going to work in pencil crayon to add more detail. I do that after I've finished this one. I'm going to work in pencil crayon. I've lost my pencil crayons at the moment because I'm moving house. So at the moment it's just all acrylic pens. But when I find my pencil crayons, I will work over the top of the acrylic pens with the pencil crayons, which will give a neater, more complex combination of colours, because you can't really blend the acrylic pens together very well. It's more cartoony. So you can see why it took 2 hours to do this, because there's an awful lot of stuff in there. Obviously, the more pictures you add, the more complex it is and the more tracing you have to do. So if you want to avoid this part, either photocopy your tracing paper on the first go, or make your pictures less complex and fewer of them. Right, turning it over. Now I've put it on top of the actual outline that I'm going to use for the painting, and I'm drawing around it again. So this is the third time tracing, and that's how you use tracing paper in a traditional way. You copy, then you turn it over and mimic it on the back, which gives some graphite to transfer onto the page, and then you draw again on the other side. So that's 3 times. I like this stage when it's the drawn elements of it. I think it looks interesting when it's all just black and white. Once I've done this, I've then got an outline, a silhouette, filled with patterns, but they're all black and white. So I'll then need to choose materials, art materials. Which ones am I going to use to add the colour? Some materials are easier to use than others. You need something that you can get detail with. So there we are, there's the outline. I'm now just strengthening some of the areas, adding a bit more to them, because once you start laying down the pen, you won't be able to see the lines very well. So I'm just strengthening them where they're a bit weak. Altogether, this took about 6 hours to do, because there was the beginning of it where you're cutting out and sticking the collage pieces. Then there's the 2 hours of tracing and drawing out, and then again there's another couple of hours of adding colour. And then also I did some extra over the top with the pencil crown, which isn't shown in this video. That came afterwards. I just wanted to add more detail. So have a think about what would you put in yours? What kind of theme would you collect your images to? Would it be identity? Would it be cultures? Would it be nature? What would it be? What theme would you have running through it? Right, it's time to start adding colour now. So we have our outline drawn out, and we have our reference picture, and possibly you might have the set of pictures that you printed out originally as well, and you could look at those. I mean, I printed out mine black and white mostly, but you could look at the colour pictures wherever you've stored them and start adding colour. I'm going to use a mixture of pens, so I've got some acrylic pens here. I've got some watercolours, I've got some acrylic paint, I've got some coloured pencils, I've got some Posca pens, mixed media. So whatever works, basically. Just use whatever works and start filling it in. And then you can think about a background. Are you going to print it out, double-side it, and cut it out on card so that we can turn them into a flock and suspend them from the ceiling? Or are you going to put it onto a background? It's up to you. It's totally up to you. I might try both. I might put the original on a background and that I make, and then maybe print out some copies, cut round them, and turn them into a flock. There we go. See how that goes. Okay, so I've chosen the pens, and now I'm going to start adding the colour. So where to start? Now, I've foolishly chosen to start on the right-hand side, which means when I'm doing the left-hand side, I'm going to be leaning over and smudging, but I felt the urge to start with my parents. So that's my mum and dad on the right-hand side. So I've gone straight for those. And the pens are interesting to use. Some of them bleed onto the paper, and some of them don't. And it's quite hard to combine them. So that's why I'm going to be using the coloured pencil afterwards, and maybe a bit of watercolour paint as well. I left the tops off a couple of these and they went hard. So not something you can do. I'm soaking them in water to see if that helps. I've also got some Posca pens, which are branded pens with very bright, very thick opaque paint inside. These pastel ones, which I got from Temu, trying them out. These pastel ones are a lot softer. They've got a brush on the end of them, so it feels like you're painting instead of drawing. And you can combine them a little. Now that blue jumper is going to clash against the, or blend in with the blue that I'm going to put at the back of the bird. So there's Mum and Dad. And basically you just go all the way around. I'm not bothering drawing an outline of the bird because it's going to be cut out. So you can decide what to do with it. Sometimes you can just leave it there on the white page, and then you've got 3 pages. One that's the collage, one that's the coloured one, and one that's the tracing. So you see all 3 different stages, and that's quite good to have in your portfolio. Graphics or art GCSE. Or you can take it further and can perhaps print it onto card and double print it one each side, and then cut out, make a hole, perhaps where the eye is, and suspend it from the ceiling, make a flock. Or it can be added to a background. You can draw or paint a background, or cut it out and stick it onto one, which is what I'm going to do. I have a large amount of test pieces of paper where I've been testing new techniques or new colours, or just using up old paint and with a squeegee or something, and I'm just going to transfer it onto one of those. I'm doing the cat at the moment. That's my cat Misty. She always walks over every picture I do. She'll come and sit on it. She gets involved with every video that I make, and there's nothing I can do about it. If I try and stop her, she'll knock something over and make it worse, so I just let her get on with it and she'll get off again quite quickly. But she's a huge part of my life. She'll be 16 next week, and so of course she's included in there. Now that's another peony. My mum grew pink peonies in the garden. She loved pink and blue. Pink and blue and grey were her colours. And my father was blue and green. So the pink peonies. I think if you're painting them in watercolour, it's actually easier. These pens are quite difficult. They want to be block colours. But I'm going for sort of vibrant colours because it's going to have a dark blue background and I want them to clash. And you see that juxtaposition of dark and light, of bright and muted. And that's what I'm going for. So you can make yours as bright as you want. You can choose a different colour scheme if you like. It doesn't have to be all bright colours. So I hope you're drawing along with me. It'll be interesting to see what you produce. What animal, what bird is it going to be? Going for the sunflowers now. Absolutely adore sunflowers. The colours are stunning, and the textures of those petals are stunning as well. There's nothing better than driving along and seeing a field of sunflowers. thinking maybe I should have done the blue background first and then painted over, because acrylic pens, one of the good things about them, even though they're pastel colours which seem very pale and translucent, they're not. They're opaque, and you can paint right over something underneath them. So I could have done the blue background first and then painted the petals over the top, which might well have been easier. Doing a butterfly now. One reason I chose butterfly is because my Uncle David, who has made a big impression on me, he painted butterflies. He was a naturalist, and he used to go out into the wilds and paint butterflies as they flew. He'd have a tiny, tiny little set of paints and a tiny brush, and he would make these tiny pictures, or he'd use his sketchbooks and paint into the sketchbooks. And they always had lots of movement in them. Mine's a bit static here, but his had lots of movement in them, and they were wonderful. Doing my camper van now. My camper van is called the Shmoo. It had the name already before I bought it. It's written on the floor, and it's got a label on it as well. And I absolutely adore it. It's a bit of a liability. It's got rust on it, and it only goes at 50 miles an hour. And it takes a lot to get it started. It runs out of battery very quickly. But I adore it. It's wonderful. It's from 1974. Interesting. Let me know in the comments what your favourite media is. What do you like to use? So I've got a table full, you can't see from there, but there's a table full of different equipment just in case I decide I want a certain thing, and I can just swap to it quickly. So I've got the pastel pens, I've got the, oh there's the cat, got the pastel pens, I've got the Posca pens, I've got some thin nibbed, some paintbrush ended pens, all sorts of different ones. Doing the poppy now. I've got acrylic paints and watercolour paints. I've got colour pencils. I've got graphics pens, all sorts of different things. I also have some soft chalk pastels, but those are too heavy to use. Can't get in the tiny details with them. I like the way it's brightening up now. I think it's going to work. So I'm going to have a dark background within the silhouette of the raven, just a dark colour, dark blue running through it all. That's going to be the blue sky, and I might sprinkle some stars in amongst them. And that's just filling in any gaps, because you might have gaps as you put your collage on there. They might not all fit together. So you can pick a colour for the background if you want, or you could pattern the background. Whatever I'm doing, I always seem to get my fingers stuck into it, and it's very difficult to actually just use a pen or just use a brush. Misty's always interested in what I'm doing. She likes to sit on it if she can. Colouring in Beth now. She has a wonderful studio where she makes all her cosplay costumes, and she sometimes uses dangerous equipment. So that's why she wears this mask. But I like it. I've got lots of pictures of her without the mask, but I like the one with the mask because it reminds me of her, because that's what she's doing every other day. Putting some of the Klimt circles in there. They I don't add much detail to them in this. When I finish, they're just plain circles. But after filming had finished, I added a lot more detail to everything using the coloured pencils. But I ran out of time because I'm moving house at the moment. So I just did a bit of a rush job here. I say rushed, it was still six hours plus the extra time. So 3 sets of 2-hour lessons would work. I'm going for a nice bright foot to contrast against the background. I want this bird to really stand out against whatever background I put it on. He's coming along well now. So I'm putting in the dark background now. It's the night time. I think ravens are associated with night time. I like the flow of the acrylic pens. If you use traditional felt tip pens, it takes quite a lot to cover areas, large areas, and then you end up with lines. But with these, you get quite smooth coverage. It's nice. So if you have a go at one of these, let me know how in the comments below how you ended the piece. Did you have it just as 3 pieces on paper for your portfolio, Or did you do something more creative with them? Put it on an interesting background, or paint or draw the background in behind it, or cut it out and suspend it from the ceiling? What did you do with yours? I left the wing till the end because it's so complex. I filled in some of the dark areas to try and show myself where to put the darks and lights and the crossover pieces. I was regretting putting a few clouds in over the moon round the eye, and then I need a black eye. So this is a gold Posca pen, trying to make it stand out. Nearly all done. Now I've got to find a pen. Sadly, the pen I use is quite a thick nibbed one, and I think it's a bit too clumsy for this detail, so I'll probably go over the gold area again afterwards. That's a very thick pen. Okay, he's looking nice and colourful and look almost as if he's been finished. So a bit of black outlining around the wing. Really make it stand out the way that the Celts used to with their artwork. So this is symbolising my dad, who was a big fan of Anglo-Saxon Celtic artwork. We used to go metal detecting, looking for the elusive find of Anglo-Saxon jewelry. Never did. I never did find any. But it reminds me of him, which is good. Bit of white on there. So he's nearly finished now for today. So the next thing, after a little bit of correcting mistakes, the next thing to do is to cut him out. If he's being cut out. Yep, he's being cut out. So cut him out and then decide what comes next. Does he go on a collage? Is he going to be stuck onto a background? Does he become something else? You can cut out with scissors or you can use a craft knife. I choose scissors because I like the control that you have. Sometimes with a craft knife I can slip and you end up cutting a whole piece off like a wing or a beak or something. So I think you're more likely to have more control with scissors. I might be wrong. Some people might think completely the opposite. But I know that suits me, and you can sort of get into all those little tiny details. So that paper is quite thin, so if I was going to have him as a mobile, I would definitely need to stick it to some card. But then you have the problem of cutting it out. A laser cutter would be good if you could just cut round the outline, photocopy it, get 2 of them, cut them out, and then stick 1 on each side. That would be excellent. One of them would have to be reversed though. There we go, he's all cut out. And I'm choosing backgrounds now. That one looks better. The other ones were too similar in colour. So I'm going to glue them down, but then afterwards I'm going to take it a little bit further off camera. There we go. One colourful bird on the background. Sort of the simplest way of doing it. Not decided yet whether that's going to be how it is.